we are recording. So, hello, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Melissa Jimenez, and I am the Credit for Prior Learning Program Manager at the Colorado Community College System. And I am joined by my colleague, Tori Costantino. She is the Academic Affairs Program Manager for the Colorado Skills Institute within the Colorado Community College System. So, we're excited to share with you today a little bit about the Colorado Skills Institute. You might hear us mention it as CSI. And really the way that we're transforming how we recognize learning outside of the traditional classroom through credit for prior learning, or CPL. So today we're going to walk you through why this work matters, how our model works, and the impact it's already making on learners and employers. All right, so as you can see on this map, Colorado Community College System has a statewide reach. So we have campuses and learning centers and areas really in every corner of the state. So this network is critical because it allows us to deliver opportunities for skill building and credit recognition in both urban and rural areas. So whether someone lives in Denver or Pueblo or Grand Junction, the goal is really the same, and that's to meet our learners where they are and to help them leverage the skills that they've already earned. So we have 13 colleges within our system. We're in 35 locations across the entire state, and then online everywhere. So we do have some fully online programs, and then the Colorado Skills Institute that Tori is helping to lead is also an online marketplace and platform. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Tori to talk to you a little bit about CSI.
Thank you, and good day, everyone. So, the Colorado Skills Institute is newly launched by the Colorado Community College System to be that centralized platform for non-credit professional development industry certifications. Our goal is to make sure that all Coloradans have the ability to upskill, reskill, or find that next skill to thrive in our state's workforce and stay in demand. Our programs focus on high demand sectors, and all of our programs are asynchronous, self-paced, and come with a wide variety of supports such as Lightcast Career Coach, Office 365, our entire CCCS library system, 24/7 technical support to ensure that all of our programming is accessible and to help learners balance work, life, and education. Our goal is to also work with employers to design customized training, which will enhance recruitment and retention at our CCCS colleges. So everything turns into one big loop at the end of the day. One of the examples that we'll dive into later is our partnership with the Behavioral Health Administration in Colorado, which shows how we are working in tandem to create stackable credentials up through bachelor's programs to help fill the skills gap in this industry. This helps create the Institute to be that scalable model for workforce education with that learner-focused mindset. That is our goal at the end of the day, is that our learners are getting exactly what they need and we are meeting their needs. So then we'll go in to explain how credit for prior learning is such an important piece of the Colorado Skills Institute.
Yeah, so credit for prior learning, or CPL, it's really an important piece of this puzzle. So just kind of a quick recap, CPL recognizes learning that happens outside of the classroom. So we're looking at things like work experience, military service, professional certifications, which we'll talk a little bit more about, and then even some self-directed training. So when you award credit for what your learners or your students already know, it will help to accelerate their career advancement, or it can help with that. It reduces time and cost to earn a degree or a credential. And then it also helps to strengthen workforce readiness by aligning your real world skills with academic pathways. So most importantly, CPL expands opportunities for our non-traditional learners. So those people who may not see themselves really as students, but they absolutely bring valuable knowledge and expertise to the table. So we're really focusing a lot on professional certifications through the Colorado Skills Institute. And we are looking at having some sort of CPL pathway for everything that the Colorado Skills Institute is providing to learners. So it may not be one individual skill, but it will be some sort of stackable pathway to ensure that they are receiving credit for everything that they are doing.
So a lot of questions may come about of why launch this now? What's the goal behind this? And just to give a little bit of context, one of the big things within Colorado is a lot of our colleges are offering non-credit continuing education programs, but there was no central data tracking system to know really what was going on. So this was part of the bigger goal, is creating data tracking and streamlining that reporting piece so that we can see what's happening both on the non-credit and credit side to better engage with our learners and figure out how we can help them as well as our employers and meet their talent needs. Especially because Colorado workforce has some significant challenges. We have over 500,000 Coloradans with some college, no degree. And per our 2024 Colorado Talent Pipeline report, around 40,000 workers are retiring annually. This means that our workforce demands are outpacing our traditional pipelines. Even taking that a step further, a lot of traditional education is overlooking skills from military service, work experience, or self-study. Coupling that with, labor market data that's showing 73% of Colorado jobs are going to require some type of post-secondary credentials by 2030, there's a whole lot of gaps in here that we need to fill, thus creating the Colorado Skills Institute. All of the Colorado Skills Institute programs are informed by a variety of different data points and market research so that we can prioritize access, affordability, as well as those in-demand skills gaps that are needed today. So we want to become that bridge that is between learning and opportunity, as well as meeting employers, meeting our college needs, and finding all those little gaps that we haven't met yet, and becoming that niche area that helps Colorado becomes such a larger economy and continue to fill in those retiring gaps. Go ahead to the next slide. So with that in mind, as we're building programs out, we want to ensure that our learners, if they want to continue on their education, have some type of credit for prior learning experience ready to go that they can give to their registrar and say, I've done this, it came from the Colorado Skills Institute, it's easily identifiable, and it can help the student move faster. Again, as Melissa said, saving them time, money, effort, energy, and getting them into that career that they want to be in. So with that in mind, we've designed an assessment process that is designed to be rigorous, transparent, student-centered, to make sure that learners receive fair credit for prior learning while maintaining academic standards. Our student-first design prioritizes accessibility and support because, again, they're at the heart of the Colorado Skills Institute. We want to meet them where they are at. But we also want to be mindful that our approach embeds equity and provides flexible scheduling, clear communication, and support, while also keeping a focus on faculty as well, because we know they're at the heart of approving and reviewing this content to make sure that it is up to that academic standard. So our process begins by either, myself as the Colorado Skills Institute, or, one of our other colleges that are looking to submit to our PLA matrix. They submit that content to Melissa at our system office right here. She'll do a quick review of that content and then send it on to the correct state discipline chair, such as, IT or healthcare, business, etc. Either that discipline chair or somebody in under them will then review that content and either approve or deny it to be added to our statewide matrix. If it's added to our statewide matrix, It ensures that if a student moves from Lamar to Denver or vice versa and then they want to continue their education, that credit for prior learning still counts at both institutions or any other institution within the state. This way, we're keeping our faculty at the heart of it while prioritizing our students' learning through the Colorado Skills Institute and giving them a leg up as they're earning non-credit credentials, as well as making sure that we're providing best practices, central guidance from Melissa, building out best practices so that it's a scalable model across the state.
All right, so this is what CPL looks like in practice. We're going to start with IT. I only have 2 examples here. We have many disciplines on our matrix, but for the sake of time and this presentation, we are only going to focus on these 2, so IT and behavioral health. So IT, we're looking at industry certifications that can translate directly into college credit, which again, saves the learner's time and it'll get them closer to that degree. This is a very small example of what that looks like on our matrix. This is internal to all of our colleges, so they all have access to this. But basically, it, in a nutshell, will list out the industry certification, who issued that certification, the course number that it is equivalent to, and the course titles, just to make sure that there's some checks and balances there so people don't mistype, maybe a course number and then it pulls up a different course title. So we put both of them on there, and then we put what the total credit hours are, what they will be receiving for the courses that we are transcribing. So we do have a common course numbering system. So all of our colleges within the system uses the same curriculum and the same course number. So for example, if somebody received the Certified Network Associate, so the CCNA, through Cisco, then they will get 4 classes transcribed for that industry certification, giving them a total of 20 credit hours. So that's just one example. Again, we have many more. We have apprenticeships on here. And then, of course, your standardized exams. So your AP, IB, CLEP, DSSTs, DLPTs, etc. But again, for the sake of this presentation, we're just going to be showing you specific industry and workforce examples. And then we just chose IT for this one. So what I did not put on this slide is a couple other columns that we have listed on here. One of them is going to be when we had last reviewed this industry credential and when it's up for re-review. So we do review these based on the discipline. It could be annually, it could be every 2 years, every 3 years, every 5 years. It really just depends on the discipline. Some disciplines, they change frequently. The curriculum's constantly changing because it is a fast-paced industry. And then there's other industries that might be a little slower paced, and we can re-review every 3 to 5 years. So that is listed on there, and I reach out to our state discipline chairs at that time to have them revet the curriculum of the credential that is being earned, and of course our courses as well, because our curriculum also changes over time. All right, the second one I'm going to talk a little bit about is behavioral health. So Tori mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but we have some boot camps and training programs that are mapped into stackable credentials. So it creates a clear pathway for workers to advance in their careers while meeting the growing demand in this specific sector. So this is an infographic for you. This is what it looks like. The one I'm going to talk about is highlighted in this like light yellow color on the left-hand side. This is our Qualified Behavioral Health Assistant program, so our QBHA. You will see that if they complete these 4 courses, then they will be awarded 10 credit hours. This is something that the Colorado Skills Institute offers. So they do offer a boot camp for those who are already in the field. Then they can go through this boot camp, and then they will receive credit for all 4 of these courses. And then if you look to the right side of that, there's the Behavioral Health Assistant 2. So this is 16 credit hours. So those 4 courses that they already received credit for will stack into this Behavioral Health Assistant 2 program. And they really only need now 2 courses to earn that credential. And then that stacks into the Associate of Applied Science. So if they have all of these credits, then they only need to take a few extra courses to get that associate's, and then that full associate stacks into our Behavioral of Applied Science as well within behavioral health. So we really are looking at trying to develop all of our programs into stackable pathways so we can give learners credit for the things that they have already learned, so they can walk away with some sort of credential that holds value for the workforce as we move forward.
All right. So yeah, those are a couple of great examples of how we're getting things off the ground as we continue to move forward. Our goal is to really make sure that we're in alignment with our credit for prior learning with our workforce needs. So as I mentioned earlier, the Colorado Skills Institute, we want to align everything with the industries that need real, that have real big skills gaps. So we look at a lot of different labor market data to ensure that the programs that we're offering are what's going to meet the needs of Colorado's workforce. This includes, again, Lightcast, Colorado Talent Pipeline Report, Coursera reports, World Skills reports. There's a whole lot of data behind choosing what programs we're going to offer to ensure that, again, they're meeting those workforce needs and can find some alignment within credit for prior learning. We also want to make sure that it's tackling both sides of the skills gap, because we have a huge essential skills gap as well as those technical skills. So we're really looking to find ways to meet both and offering programs that meet both sides of the house in that respect. Some of the ones that we're looking to focus on here in the future are project management, data analysis, renewable energy, and the goal is to build and launch new courses every month. So that way learners can look at this, and if they don't see something that works for them right now, they can come back in a month, 6 months, and there's always going to be new content that's generated, and that content will constantly be vetted and reanalyzed to ensure that it's still relevant to our workforce. As we continue to grow, the strategy is to work with employers to build partnerships that validate and hire Skills Institute's completers, as well as making sure that the certifications we're offering that we are then aligning with credit for prior learning are what they're looking for at the end of the day. That way we're making sure that everyone's needs are being met and that we're offering the most up-to-date relevant courses. Go ahead to the next slide.
All right, so looking at implementation. So for those of you who are thinking about, how do you apply credit for prior learning at your institution or within your system, we've put together a very, very broad, kind of high level implementation roadmap for you. So some of the steps that we have included here is first and foremost, engaging stakeholders. So you want to think about your faculty, employers, your leadership, and you want to have them really early on in the process to help you think through what you might need as you're developing a program for credit for prior learning. The second part of this is to define your CPL policies and have some really clear assessment criteria. Defining CPL policy, you want to make sure that you are upholding policy across either your system or your colleges. So everybody is really on the same page. And then that assessment criteria piece, you want to make sure that whatever you are using for assessment, it is the same across the board. Now, it could have slight variance depending on maybe different disciplines or different colleges within, a university. They might assess things a little differently, and that is okay. Just make sure that you have something, some sort of template that you can have as your standard. So that way folks aren't assessing things differently based on the person who's actually doing the assessment. You want to make sure everything has the same across the board. The third part of this is mapping curriculum to your workforce needs. So credit truly reflects relevant skills. Tori mentioned really focusing on that skills gap, and you really want to make sure that you have something that is aligning with those workforce needs as you move forward with launching a program. And then number 4, launching that program. So you want to do that with faculty and employer input to make sure that you have credibility. So you want to make sure that this has credibility with your academic side of the house and within education, because you are essentially granting credit for the course. But then you also want to make sure that this is holding credibility with the employer. So if you are awarding credit for something and you have these short-term credentials, and in our case, we have digital badges for these. So if we're awarding a digital badge to a learner, we want to make sure that the employer knows that it is credible and it holds value. So make sure you launch your programs with your faculty and your employer input. And then the last one here is monitoring and evaluating and scaling your efforts over time. So you want to make sure that as you are maybe doing a pilot, which can be pretty small, you want to make sure you are keeping that scalability in mind, because if this is something that is working for your institution or your system, you want to ensure that you can make it a lot more broad and be able to actually scale it, so you're not reinventing what you have already done that works, because it was not built for large scale. So you can start small, but think long term as well as you are developing your programs. And then really bottom line is that it's not a one and done process. So it is iterative. It's designed for long-term impact.
All right, so some of the lessons learned throughout the past year as we've launched the Colorado Skills Institute, as Melissa and I both have really gotten familiar with our jobs and the needs of our colleges, the needs of our workforce, the needs of the state. We've realized that transparency and clarity are critical pieces of creating something this massive. Because without those pieces, we're not being efficient and helpful to both our students or our faculty. With that in mind, we will continue to work to ensure that any credit for prior learning that we build through the Skills Institute comes with a real world outcome, whether that's a new job, whether that's a bonus, whether that's a promotion. We also realize that having the centralized support by both being hosted at the system office rather than at individual colleges, we can support and scale these opportunities that measure the state rather than doing individual regions. Some of our colleges do have their own individual credit for prior learning assessment matrix as well, but having that system-wide approach really creates a unique opportunity to serve the entire state, as well as to create best practices and collaborate as a system, or as our strategic plan likes to say, the power of 13. We're better together than we are apart. So with that in mind, we want to use the Colorado Skills Institute as a living lab. So one of the things that we really prioritize is our ability to adapt, our ability to scale, and as well as share best practices. Before the Colorado Skills Institute was launched, I was on a smaller grant to really see if this was something that would be effective. And that was the key piece we took away, was that ability to adapt and change the programming, our student services, our offerings as quick as possible to ensure that we're meeting the students where they're at. As well as part of this overall project, as we said, it's a statewide initiative. So all of our 13 colleges now also use the same non-credit student enrollment management system, as well as a variety of integrations. So that way, if a student is bouncing back and forth between credit or non-credit, they're using the same learning management system. They're using the same, they have one student ID number that follows them both credit or non-credit. So it really creates a streamlined and clean process for a learner to get as much of their education as possible without having to deal with a lot of the intricacies that can come with higher ed and managing all the different barriers that could come with that. As well as, again, with all of us using the same system now, we all work as a community to share best practices and learn from each other, so that as we're offering non-credit across the state, we're all on the same page. We're looking at who's offering what. We're figuring out best practices of how to do something with employers or third parties, or I have this, wonky enrollment of, I want to put, 10 non-credit learners in a class and 5 credit learners. We're learning how to adapt and build together. So this really gives us the opportunity to see how much we can do together as a state, as well as letting the Colorado Skills Institute be that house now for non-credit across the state. All right, so a little bit more about how you can apply this model at your own institution or across your own state. Make sure that you are assessing your existing skills and training for credit potential. Here we go. So, examples of that are, make sure that we find different ways to evaluate credit for prior learning, whether that's through portfolio assessments or military experience, as well as making sure then that you are collaborating with your employers to validate those competencies through either a joint type of assessment or figuring out with that advisory board, how does this certification, how does this work experience then tailor in and come into the industry that this learner is looking to enter. As well as, again, make sure those any pathways you're creating are stackable. So again, you saw our behavioral health model where it starts and really focuses on both the credit and non-credit side. That qualified behavioral health assistant boot camp is for our non-credit learners. It's for workers that are already in the field looking for that next step up. It's 2 weeks. Whereas if they are a learner on the credit side, it's 4 courses that takes them a whole semester. So we're really looking at that balance of credit and non-credit while working with the Behavioral Health Administration and all the employers that are in that partnership to make sure that what we're building works for everybody. And finally, make sure that that infrastructure is really built and that it's supportive for both your learners and your faculty. Your faculty are always going to want to be involved when it comes to credit for prior learning and ensuring that what a student is bringing in is viable and not just giving credit to give credit, as well as ensuring that the learner knows that what they're bringing in has value to not just your faculty and to your institution, but to your employer as well.
All right, so we wanted to summarize a couple takeaways from today. So the first, CPL really unlocks opportunities for both the learners and the employers, right? So not only is it benefiting the learner where, they're saving time, they're saving money, they're working on that pathway towards a degree, helps boost confidence for those who thought maybe being a student wasn't for them, but it also helps the employers as well. If they can also see that the learning that is being occurring and everything happening on the ground in the workforce is also what we are providing our learners on the for credit side, then it also strengthens that partnership, right? So really when we're looking at the Colorado Skills Institute, it's reimagining credit for prior learning as a workforce accelerator, and it's not just an academic tool. So really working with the workforce, trying to figure out where those skills gaps are, and then identifying how can we create something where they are getting credit for what the workforce is needing, and how can we provide that learning outside of your traditional classroom as non-credit, but also still giving credit to those learners should they want to enter higher education and a credit bearing degree program. And then the last takeaway that we hope you have learned by now is that every institution can really scale this work with the right support and partnerships in place. So it does take quite a few folks, and there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to credit for prior learning and developing non-credit pathways, being able to do the stackability piece. It really takes a lot of folks. So make sure you have that right support and those partnerships. That is why at the beginning, we mentioned having leadership involved. Yes, you may be doing a lot of the legwork and the groundwork, but the leadership is going to be the one to really support and highlight and bring this to the forefront for funding opportunities and with the faculty, knowing that they are the subject matter experts in conjunction with some of the employers. So they may know, the faculty may know what is needed on the academic side, and then you have your employers who know what is needed actually in the workforce. So having everybody kind of on board and having those partnerships in place is what is going to help you scale this work. So last but not least, as we wrap up here, we really wanted to leave you with 2 reflection questions, 2 things that you can take back to your institutions and really think about as you move forward. So the first one here, what skills go unrecognized at your institution? This is a good starting place if you are looking to, really start this process. So what is your institution not providing your learners on the for credit side, and how can you possibly have some non-credit pieces that you can start giving credentials for, non-credit credentials, but still providing a credential that the workforce might find relevant, and then how can you stack that into a for credit bearing certificate or program. And then the second reflection question is, where could a CPL or credit for prior learning model enhance your workforce initiatives? Again, that partnership with the workforce, that should be, front and center with all of your programs that you are moving forward. We talked at the very beginning about how many folks are out there who have some sort of learning, but they don't hold a credential. So really working with the workforce, figuring out what those gaps are, and then providing credit for prior learning for those gaps. Just keep in mind, you don't want to provide credit if the learning does not actually align. So ensure that there is still some credibility there on the academic side for the for credit, and then also on your workforce side. So with that, we would love to connect and explore some of these questions with you. Our contact information is here on this slide. So we invite you to reach out and learn a little bit more about the Colorado Skills Institute, and how we can maybe support your work, any questions that you might have. And then I am also at the CALE conference, so feel free to send me a chat and I would be happy to meet up and have these conversations with you as well. But with that, thank you so much for joining our session and the work that you all are doing at your respective institutions to really empower learners and strengthen our workforce moving forward. So thanks all.